I'm going to tell you what I do. It's up to you to figure out what you do. Hey there, it's McCare. I'm out here today to harvest some mullein, and so I wanted to show you how I do that, what I'm going to do with it, and today we're really just going to be talking about the leaves. You can use the leaves or the flowers or the roots from mullein. They cross purposes, but each part has its own kind of best application. So today I'm working with the leaves because that's what's ready to harvest. Before we even get to harvesting a single leaf, let me tell you that I am not a medical professional. I am not even an herbalist. I'm studying, I am learning. But what I'm going to tell you today is how I use or how I intend to use mullein. I am not telling you how to use mullein. That is between you and some reading and your body and maybe a doctor. Okay? So I'm going to tell you what I do, and it's up to you to figure out what you do. That. We want to harvest the parts that are ready to use, obviously. Mullein is biennial, which means that it grows for 2 years. And in the first year, it makes this big rosette. And you can see I came in and pulled off the dead leaves yesterday. This summer, or later this spring, it'll send up big flower spikes. These can get 8 feet tall, usually around 6 is what we've seen around here. The flowers will be harvested then, but in the first year and at the beginning of the second year, and really until the plant dies, you can harvest the leaves. They can get quite large. And I just have a box to set them on. Whoop, and some wind. All I'm doing is cutting off the leaves and setting them on the box for now. These leaves have a couple of benefits. They're good for lungs. They soothe mucous membrane, which like your throat and the inside of your nose and your lungs are. So it soothes mucous membrane by coating it. It is mucilaginous, and it also can either soothe a cough or help a cough be more productive, kind of depending on what your lungs are doing at the time. Personally, I smoke it. If you dry this and smoke it, it is a very dry plant, so it can help to mix it with some lavender and maybe even some holy basil. That combination puts me to sleep, by the way. Last week, I had a really bad sinus thing going on, and when it started to drain, I started to get a sore throat, and then my chest started wheezing really badly. I smoked this for a couple of days, and it cleared up the wheezing, and it cleared up the weird cough that I had going on, and the sore throat only lasted a day. I find a lot of benefit from doing that way. Obviously, not everybody wants to smoke. Not everybody should smoke. I do it just so it gets directly into my lungs. You can also, it's got some anthill on the back of it. You can also burn the dried leaves without smoking them. You can roll these into bundles, and I'll do one in a little bit to show you how to do that. It's really quick and easy. And then let that dry. And then you can just burn that bundle like you would burn incense or like a sage stick. Make sure that you have something heat proof that you're gonna set it on if you do that. And have a way to put it out. Mullein burns hot, and when you make these herb sticks out of it, it will burn for longer than you think. Like, you'll think that you have put it out and it's still smoldering on the inside. Even having that, sometimes if I'm not feeling like smoking, if my chest is really irritated, even though that does soothe it, it can be hard to get it in that way. So burning the bundles, you can have it nearby and just kind of waft it toward you. It's also good if you're trying to use this for a child or someone who shouldn't be introduced to smoking yet. That's all I'm going to take from this plant. I want to leave it plenty to collect light with. Whoa! Decided to employ my notebook to hold those leaves down for me. This is my largest one. The rest of these, the other 7 are smaller. And so I'm just going to take a couple of leaves each. Some ways that I'm trying to expand my use of the leaves is that I will be making a salve with some of it, because this is also supposed to be good for skin healing. Okay, so I'm cheating off my notes right here. So it increases circulation, which helps it tighten skin, and it has high levels of elastin. So it is good for improving circulation to the skin, bruising, scarring, stretch marks, wounds, burns, bruises, frostbite, skin infections. So I already use a calendula salve for this, and we are low on calendula right now anyways, so it'll be good to have a second thing in our tool belt. I want to experiment and see if it has some different properties, and maybe one's better for some conditions than others. Maybe it's good to combine them. It also can promote hair growth and luster if you make it into a hair rinse. So I'll be keeping some for that, and I'll be able to harvest again this year. I'm not limited to just what I'm grabbing right now. I also want to tincture some leaves to be able to use it that way. Honestly, I add my tinctures to my coffee in the morning sometimes, or to a tea, just because it's easy to take them that way. I do them in vodka, a dropper full of that. I mean, sometimes it's the way to start off the morning, but sometimes it's also kind of, if I put it into a tea or my coffee or whatever, it soothes it out so I don't taste it so much. You can use the leaves in a tea. Now, if you do that, I will advise you directly on this part as a caution. These leaves have hair. Let's come over here and see this. So these leaves have hair on them. They're very, very fuzzy. This can irritate your throat and your digestive tract. So if you make a tea from this, you want to strain it through paper. Some people say a cheesecloth is acceptable, but that still has holes in it. A coffee filter or empty paper tea bags that you can load yourself. So something like that would be better. So I didn't take a lot from the smaller plants, just to leave them plenty to collect sunlight with. Now, as I mentioned, these are all second-year mulleins. I will be starting some more so that we have basil rosettes going for this year, and then spikes also going. So we'll have first and second year if all my seed starting goes well, which I have 8 here, and I started 9 last year, so they did very well. All of the ones that are like damaged or browning, I can just put them on the ground as chop and drop. They'll do fine like that. Okay, so I'll show you how I make one of those bundles. They're really simple, and you can layer other herbs into this if you want to. You can see it has this really big rib. That makes it hard to roll. So I'm gonna cut that big rib out to about 2/3 up the leaf. Oh no. Okay, catastrophe break. Hold on. Okay, so while I was restacking all of those, I found a couple of larger leaves at the bottom of the stack. So I'm gonna use the biggest ones I have and the most intact, because this isn't gonna hold together very well once we try to do stuff with it. So I'm just gonna take my knife and I'm gonna trace either side of that rib. And you can see I wasn't terribly exact with it. That's fine. That's just getting tossed back. And then as the plants grow, I'll be able to make more of these. And you can make them with the smaller leaves. It's just less fidgety to go ahead and use the big ones. Now, mullein is drought tolerant. This one that was really big got more water than these that are smaller. It's drought tolerant, but it grows better with consistent watering. Don't drown it. That's bad too. I want the part that's still together to become the outside, and just for appearance, I want the top of the leaf to be the outside. So I'm going to put it down. I'm going to stack them like this with both of the cut edges pointing in the same direction, and I will start rolling them from the bottom. Now, I've done this before where I put a stick of garden sage, right there to kind of anchor that bottom piece, and that worked well. But for now, I'm just going to roll from the bottom up like you are rolling up a t-shirt to pack, if you roll your shirts to pack. And then when you get to part of that rib, it's going to get a little harder to roll it. That's okay. We're just going to keep going. And then see, I gave myself that end to finish with, so it's nice and tidy. And then I can just take some butcher's twine or whatever you have that will be okay to burn. I did that. We're just going to anchor it in one spot and go around, back down. And I'm just going to tuck that in and wrap it around a couple of times to tie it off. Now, last year I did these where I had lots of knots in them to secure it, and it just used more string, and I don't feel like it burned any differently. So I'm just going to tuck it and see what that does. If I need to adjust, I will. And then after I make a couple of these, I'm just going to hang them. And they will dry like this. It takes a little while. I do it underneath the AC vent in my room so that it gets some of the drier air when it's humid, which I'm in North Texas. It's not as bad as being like by the Gulf Coast, but it still gets humid here. So if I keep them in that spot underneath the air vents, it tends to dry them a little bit better. Like I said, if you burn this sitting on something, make sure that this is heat resistant. Hey, so if you enjoy this content or if you got anything helpful out of it, if you could please click that like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. I would really appreciate it. Both of those things tell YouTube that people like you like to watch videos like mine, and that helps me grow, which helps me do all the things I want to do in life to help other people. So I would appreciate it, and so would they. Thank you. All right, so this is actually part of a project that I'm doing this year just for me. And I want to learn how to use 12 different medicinal herbs better. So I have started a silly little thing. I have a 12 plant project going, and I've actually got like 15 or 16 on the list, but I want to dive into at least 12 herbs deeper and find more ways to use them. That's something I have going on. I'll share more with you, and I will share when I get to harvesting the flowers what I do with those as well. Okay, so when I make tinctures, I will do that with fresh plant material, because it's going into alcohol, it's going into vodka. When I do oils or prepare this to use in a tea or to burn or to smoke, it will be dried. I told you to look stuff up, and you can use the internet, but I'm going to share with you the books that I have, and I will try to find links to most of them if I can and put them in the description. If one of them is not listed down there, it's because I couldn't find a good link for you. I don't use that one big bookstore, so it'll be other sources. If you are just getting started with herbalism, I would suggest this one. It's Rosemary Gladstar's Medicinal Herbs, a beginner's guide. So it covers, I think it's like 12 or 15 different herbs, and it goes into the basics of how to make a tea, whether you simmer or boil that tea or steep it, because it's different for what you're doing. It goes into how to make tinctures and salves and oils. It is a very good basics guide. It is a great start. It has a lot of recipes in it, and it has good information on each of the herbs. Okay, so for example, mullein. It's going to give me a little history of mullein. It's going to tell me a little bit about how it grows. It goes into the medicinal uses of the various parts of the plant. And then it has here a salve, which in this case is one mixed with red clover. And then it has the oil for the flowers for the ears, and a tea for coughs, and then a glandular tonic, because mullein is also used for lymphatic drainage. That is a good book. This book is very technical. Herbal antivirals. This talks about like how viruses work in your bodies and how the herbs combat them. This is an intellectual read. It's good to have on hand. I don't refer to it very often, but I'm glad that I have it. Another pretty basic book, The Homesteader's Herbal Companion. And this is similar to the Gladstar book, where it just gives you some different ones and how to use them. Kind of goes over some different aspects of like drying and saving herbs and things like that. Southwest Medicinal Plants. So in North Texas, we are right at the border of the Southwest and the Southeast book. But I went Southwest because it seems to apply a little bit more. So depending on where you are, you will need the appropriate version of this book, and the different versions have different authors, so they're not all John Slattery. I will put the information of where to find this one in the description, because I do remember that I ordered it directly. I didn't order it through a bookstore. And then the last one I would recommend, these are all the herbal books that I have so far, is The Lost Book of Herbal Remedies. And this covers a lot of plants. Airplane. This book breaks them out into like where they grow, like backyard plants or water-loving plants. It's got a mushroom section, the like bushier and tree kind of plants that are helpful. And this breaks them all down, and it tells you, you know, the same as the others, how to identify it, what it's used for, what the parts are used for. These are my resources, and the internet, of course. She Is of the Woods is a YouTuber that I follow, and so is Herbal Jedi. Both of them have a lot of good information. Yes, I am recommending other YouTubers. All right, so I need to go get this processed. I'm gonna drop some of it straight into vodka as soon as I get inside, get the rest of it set up for drying in its various shapes. I gotta feed the chickens, so I need to get on with my evening. Thank you so much for hanging out. Watch this video next. It's what YouTube thinks you need to see, and I will see you soon. Later, y'all. Oh.